They don't want you to know this one wealth shortcut because if you did, you'd stop working for them. While most people chase flashy trends, grind 24/7, and hope saving a few bucks leads to freedom, the wealthy quietly play a different game. They buy boring businesses, use other people's money, and master cash flow over net worth. They exploit tax codes, use debt as leverage, and never build from scratch when they can acquire. And this isn't about hustle, it's about strategy. And once you see behind the curtain, you can never unsee it. Ready to flip the script? They'll never put this in a textbook, and no one on social media is bragging about it. But here's the truth. The real wealth shortcut, it's boring. Like painfully boring. And that's exactly why it works. Because while everyone's off chasing flashy new trends, trying to launch the next unicorn startup, flipping NFTs, day trading crypto, or reinventing the wheel with some complex SaaS idea, the ones who quietly build empires are picking up dusty, overlooked businesses. The kind nobody brags about at parties. Think laundromats, car washes, trash collection routes, ATM routes, storage units, cleaning companies. Ugly, predictable, reliable cash flow machines. The outside world doesn't glamorize these. And that's by design. If they made it sexy, too many people would catch on. But these boring businesses, they're simple, repeatable, cash-flowing beasts that don't rely on some algorithm, market swing, or a million followers to stay alive. They rely on people needing their clothes cleaned, needing their car washed, needing a place to store their stuff, things that don't go out of style no matter what decade we're in. And the beauty is most of these businesses are owned by people who are ready to retire and just want out. That's where the opportunity lives. You don't need to invent something brand new to become wealthy. You need to plug into something that already works, a system, a process, a flow of cash that just needs a little optimization, some tech stacked on top, maybe a new marketing strategy, and suddenly that little business becomes your shortcut. That's what most people miss. They think wealth requires genius or luck. In reality, it requires vision to see gold where everyone else sees rust. You see, these boring businesses tend to operate under the radar, often owned by mom and pop shops, barely using the internet, running on paper ledgers, missing out on digital marketing altogether. You take one of those, slap a Stripe account on it, automate customer service, rank it on Google Maps, and within a few months, you're seeing 20%, 30%, sometimes 50% more cash flow, not by reinventing it, just by tightening the bolts. And here's the kicker. You don't even need to use your own money. There are seller finance deals where the owner lets you pay for the business over time with the profits it generates. You can partner with capital, offer equity, get creative, because the goal isn't just to own a business, it's to own a machine that makes money while you sleep. And the boring ones, they do exactly that. Now, some people will scoff. You own a laundromat, you run a septic tank service, they'll laugh until they realize that one of those businesses can clear 6 figures a year in profit, or multiple 6 figures with employees in place, with managers, with systems, while they're still stuck in the rat race trying to climb a ladder that was never built for them in the first place. It's funny, we're conditioned to think wealth is complicated, that we need credentials, investors, a Silicon Valley pitch deck, or 100,000 followers on TikTok. But that's a distraction. The real shortcut is understanding that simplicity scales, that boring businesses, done right, can be your escape hatch, that while others are trying to look rich, you're becoming wealthy, quietly, steadily, efficiently. And maybe that's why no one talks about it, because if too many people knew, the market would get crowded. But right now, there's white space. There's a transfer of wealth happening as the boomer generation retires. Businesses are up for grabs. Some are even being shut down for nothing, just because no one wants them. But you should, because they're proven. They've stood the test of time. They just need someone with eyes to see and hands to build. So while they're chasing fast, you chase certain. While they're gambling on hype, you invest in boring. Because boring pays every single time. And boring might just buy your freedom. We've been taught the wrong scoreboard. Every financial article, every flashy headline, every conversation around making it always circles back to net worth. How much are you worth? How many assets do you have? What's your investment portfolio look like? And while those metrics can be useful in a long-term theoretical sense, they are not what gives you freedom today. They don't pay your rent this month. They don't cover your team's payroll. They don't allow you to walk away from a job that's killing your soul. You know what does? Cash flow. See, net worth is often paper wealth. It looks good on a spreadsheet, sure. You own some stocks, you've got a 481k, maybe a house that Zillow tells you is worth a fortune, but try paying your electric bill with the equity in your home. Try walking into a grocery store and buying dinner with your 401k balance. You can't. And that's the trap, because the system wants you to believe that as long as your net worth is climbing, you're safe. You're doing everything right. But wealth is not a number you hit someday. Wealth is how much control you have over your time today. And cash flow is what gives you that control. The people who have actual freedom don't care nearly as much about their net worth as they do about their monthly recurring income. That's the shortcut. It's not about being a millionaire someday. It's about building income streams that hit your account every single month without you clocking in. When you focus on buying or building cash flowing assets, your entire life changes. You're no longer worried about how much your stock portfolio fluctuated this week. You're not holding your breath during market dips. You're not praying that one day all this saving will somehow turn into security. And you don't need $10,000 a month to change your life. The first $1,000, 0 cents in passive or semi-passive income, that's a psychological shift. That's the moment you realize you're not chained to the job anymore. It's not about quitting immediately. It's about knowing you could. That knowledge changes how you walk into every room. That confidence, that's power. Now let's talk tactics, because this isn't about manifesting more cash. This is about engineering it. What are the assets that give you cash flow? Service businesses, local boring businesses, real estate that actually pencils out, content that pays you over and over again, digital products, equity in businesses you didn't start but now partially own. These are income-generating assets, and most of them can be acquired, not just built. And here's what they don't want to tell you. Most of these don't require a ton of capital upfront. They require skills, they require a bit of creativity, sometimes they require your time in the beginning, but they don't require you to be rich to get started. The game changes when you stop asking, how much is this worth? And start asking, how much does this pay me every month? That's the real metric. It's also why so many so-called wealthy people are cash poor. I've met people with 7-figure net worths who are terrified of missing a paycheck. They're over-leveraged, asset-heavy, and income-light. Meanwhile, I know people with far less on paper who live life on their terms because their assets are feeding them consistently. So the next time you hear someone flex their net worth, ask a different question. How much do your assets pay you monthly? Because the person who has $4,000/month coming in on autopilot, even if they're not rich by the world's standards, is far more free than the one sitting on $2 million in equity but stuck in a cubicle. This is the shortcut they don't advertise. The one hiding in plain sight, the one that won't go viral on Instagram but will quietly set you free. And once you experience that first taste of real, self-sustaining income, you never go back. Everyone loves to talk about starting a business from scratch. You hear it all the time. Follow your passion, build something new, hustle 24/7, grind until it works. That narrative is everywhere. And while there's something romantic about it, there's also something inefficient, because the truth, the shortcut they don't want you to know, is that you don't need to build a business from scratch to become wealthy. In fact, the smartest play might be to skip the startup phase altogether and buy something that already works. Think about it. Why spend years developing an idea, testing markets, hiring teams, trying to create demand when someone else has already done all of that for you? There are hundreds of thousands of small businesses in the US alone that are already cash flowing, already profitable, already serving customers, and every day their owners are aging out, burning out, or ready to exit. These aren't failed businesses. These are real, operationally sound companies that just need someone with energy and vision to take them to the next level. This is where the real shortcut lies, not in coming up with the next big idea, but in acquiring an old one that still works. What no one tells you is that most small businesses sell for 2-3x their annual profit. So you're telling me I can buy a business that makes $100,000 0 cents a year for $250,000 0 cents or less. And often I can finance 80-90% of that through the seller or an SBA loan, meaning I only have to bring $20,000 through $50,000 0 cents to $50,000 0 cents to the table. That's less than the cost of a college degree, less than what some people spend on a wedding or a car. But instead of ending up with debt and no income, you end up with a business that pays you from day one. And here's the kicker. You don't need a revolutionary idea to do this. You need operational excellence. You need to know how to spot inefficiencies, tighten systems, elevate customer experience, and scale smart. Buy a business with 5-star reviews and terrible marketing. Buy a business with recurring revenue but zero automation. Buy a business where the owner hasn't raised prices in 10 years because they're too emotionally attached. That's where the gold is. Most people look at small business acquisition and think, but I don't know how to run a business. The reality is, you're not supposed to do it all. You're supposed to become the owner, not the operator. Your job isn't to fix plumbing in your plumbing company. It's to hire someone better than you who already knows how to do it. Your job is to guide the ship, not row the boat. And let's be honest, nobody teaches this stuff. Because if more people knew they could buy a profitable business without coding a single line, pitching a single investor, or building an Instagram following, the whole entrepreneurial machine would crumble. They sell you the story that you have to bleed and hustle and starve before you earn $1 because it keeps you in the grind longer, but you don't need to suffer to succeed. You need to learn how to buy smart. This strategy isn't loud, it's not flashy, it's not going to get you millions of followers, but it will get you something far better. Freedom. Freedom from relying on a boss. Freedom from building something from zero. Freedom from time for money traps. And all it takes is shifting your mindset from how do I start a business to what business can I buy that already works. The real flex isn't building something new, it's taking something old, making it better, and using it to buy your time back. That's the wealth shortcut they don't want you to know. Most people are taught that if you just work hard enough, for long enough, one day you'll make it. You'll retire, maybe live a little, maybe even travel. But let me tell you something uncomfortable. The people who actually have wealth, real, lasting, generational wealth, they don't build it by working harder. They build it by understanding and exploiting one thing: arbitrage. And no, I'm not talking about some Wall Street financial trick. I'm talking about the ability to spot gaps in time, capital, or knowledge, and then move through those gaps faster than the rest of the world can react. This is the shortcut they don't want you to know. Arbitrage is the game behind the game. Let's start with time arbitrage. Most people trade time for money. Hourly wages, salaries, overtime, it's all built around one assumption: that your time is your most valuable asset. But what if I told you the real leverage is when your time becomes irrelevant to how much money you make? That happens when you own assets that work for you, a business that runs without you, a rental that collects while you sleep, a service that's automated or delegated. When you begin buying back your hours, you're playing a different game than 99% of people who wake up to an alarm clock they hate. The real wealth shortcut? It starts when you stop selling your time. Then there's capital arbitrage. Most people think they need money to make money, but that's just another lie the system sold you. You don't need your money, you just need access to money. You need to know how to use other people's capital in a smart, strategic way. You see, the rich don't use their own cash to buy assets. They borrow at 6%, invest at 20%, and live off the difference. That's capital arbitrage. It's about knowing how to structure a deal, how to talk to lenders, how to partner with someone who has what you don't. The difference between staying broke and building wealth often comes down to knowing how to pitch the right person at the right time for the right asset. You don't need a trust fund, you need a blueprint. Now, let's talk about the most overlooked, yet powerful form of arbitrage: knowledge. You know why most people never even try to buy a business, invest in real estate, or start a high-margin venture? Because they simply don't know it's possible. They've never been exposed. The system teaches you how to be a good employee, not how to think like an owner. But when you realize that information is the most underpriced asset in the world, especially in an age where everything is one Google search away, that's when the game changes. Knowledge arbitrage is the moment you realize you don't need to be an expert. You just need to know 10% more than the person next to you. Learn how to find underpriced businesses? You're dangerous. Understand how to automate operations? You're valuable. Know how to build systems that scale without you? Now you're unstoppable. And when you stack all three types of arbitrage together, time, capital, and knowledge, you create an engine that produces freedom, not just income. You might be thinking, well, this sounds great, but where do I even begin? You begin where most won't. You begin by choosing not to spend another year watching from the sidelines while others play the wealth game. You begin by learning how to spot inefficiencies, by talking to owners, by getting curious about what cash flowing businesses look like under the hood. You start with a service business, a content engine, a local asset, something that solves a problem, and then you optimize it. You find the friction points, you use technology, you delegate, you reinvest. The biggest arbitrage of all is this: belief. Most people don't believe it's possible. They think the rules of wealth don't apply to them. But the rules do apply once you know what they are. They're just not taught, not in school, not on mainstream media, but they're real. And they're used every single day by the people quietly getting rich while the rest are still grinding. The world's not fair, but it is tilted in favor of those who understand arbitrage. Learn to see the gaps. Move fast. Don't play their game. Play yours. You ever wonder why some people seem to keep winning quietly, consistently, and the rest are stuck playing catch up? It's not a coincidence. It's not even bad luck. It's because the people who are really winning play a different game entirely. They don't want you to know this shortcut, because if you did, you'd stop being a pawn in their system. You'd start playing your own game. And that's dangerous to them. Let's get real. Most people are conditioned from the start to follow a linear path, go to school, get good grades, land a stable job, and maybe, just maybe, retire comfortably at 65. But you know what that is? It's a formula, a very old one. And it was designed not to make you rich. It was designed to make you dependable, predictable, controllable. That formula works beautifully for the people who own the system, but not so well for the people in it. The real shortcut to wealth doesn't live in textbooks or mainstream career advice. In fact, the people who've truly cracked the code often stay quiet about it. Why? Because their power depends on your ignorance. If you stay busy chasing paychecks, drowning in debt, and believing that wealth comes from grinding harder, you're not a threat. But the moment you realize you don't need permission, that you don't need to be chosen, that you can opt out of the script entirely, that's when things start to shift. They don't want you to know that the tax code wasn't written for W-2 employees. It was written for business owners and investors. They don't want you to understand that your job pays you last while owners pay themselves first. They don't want you to figure out that you can buy a cash flowing business with less than your car loan, that you can learn more in 90 days of owning a real world business than 4 years in a classroom. Because when you do, you stop being dependent, you stop being manageable, and that terrifies them. Think about it. The system keeps you focused on short-term rewards. Raise your hand, be polite, show up on time, check the boxes, stay in line. Then, one day, someone might tap you on the shoulder and say, "You've made it." But what if you don't want to wait for a tap on the shoulder? What if you don't want to play a game where the scoreboard is always moving, the rules are always changing, and the prize is decades away? The shortcut is deciding to stop waiting and start owning. Owning your time, your skills, your income streams, and eventually your life. That begins with realizing the gatekeepers don't have any real power except the power you give them. There are no rules that say you can't buy a business before 30, or leave your job to build cash flow, or invest in a boring asset instead of a flashy one. The only rule is the one they want you to believe, that you need them to succeed, and you don't. This game rewards people who take calculated risks, not those who follow instructions. You don't need a new app idea or millions in the bank to get started. What you need is a willingness to unlearn, to question everything you've been told about money, to start looking where others don't, at laundromats, vending routes, cleaning companies, car washes, online service businesses, the things no one talks about at dinner parties but quietly cash flow like clockwork. And when you step into that world, when you buy back your time, when you realize leverage is more powerful than labor, you start seeing through the fog. You stop chasing status and start building freedom, and suddenly their rules don't apply anymore because you're not playing their game, you're playing your own. That's the shortcut they never wanted you to find, and now you have. They teach you to hustle, work hard, save your money, get a good job, maybe invest a little in the stock market, and if you're lucky, after 40 years of playing it safe, you'll retire with just enough to maybe breathe for a few years before the clock runs out. That's the game they sold you. But let me tell you something they don't want you to know. The wealthy play by a completely different set of rules. And unless you learn those rules, you're not even on the same board. You're playing checkers while they're building empires with chess moves you've never even seen. Wealthy people don't work harder. They think differently. They don't chase paychecks. They chase control. Control of their time, their money, their taxes, their leverage. They know the system isn't made to reward effort. It's made to reward strategy. And the biggest shortcut to wealth? Learning to play the game with the rules that were never taught to you. Let's start with taxes. The average person sees taxes as a burden, something to avoid talking about until April. But the wealthy, They see taxes as a strategy. They build their lives around the tax code. They buy businesses and real estate, not just for income, but because those assets come with legal advantages that W-2 income never will. You think they're working around the clock to build generational wealth? No, they're minimizing taxes, reinvesting cash flow, and compounding gains inside structures you've never been shown. Corporations, trusts, holding companies, not because they're fancy, but because they're efficient. Debt? You were probably taught that debt is dangerous, that it's something to fear. Pay off your credit cards, avoid loans, don't borrow unless it's an emergency. That's what middle-class thinking sounds like. The wealthy, they use debt like a sword. They use it to buy cash-flowing assets. They take out loans not to buy liabilities, but to acquire income. That business generating $10.00 K a month, someone else's money bought it, they collect the cash flow, pay off the debt, and end up owning the asset outright, while most people are still stuck in analysis paralysis, afraid to make a move. Even time is different in this game. You're taught to trade hours for dollars. They're taught to buy time, not in the cliche money buys time way, in the real practical way. They hire operators, build systems, automate processes. They don't just make money, they build machines that make money for them, even when they're asleep. That's how you scale, that's how you buy back your life. But the biggest wealth shortcut is this: understand that everything is a game, and every game has rules. And if you weren't taught those rules, you're not broken, you're just uninformed. That's not your fault, but staying in the dark, that part's on you. You've got to reprogram everything they taught you. Stop idolizing hustle. Hustle is a phase, not a lifestyle. It's a bridge, not the destination. If you're still bragging about being busy, you're losing. The wealthy don't trade time for status, they trade it for leverage. And here's the kicker: this game isn't just for the elite anymore. The tools are out there. You've got access to capital, knowledge, and networks that your parents never had, but you've got to get in the room. Read the tax code, learn to structure deals, understand capital stacks, look at businesses not through the lens of effort, but through the lens of systems. You're not supposed to start from scratch. You're supposed to stand on the shoulders of what already works and scale. Most people spend their entire lives asking for permission to win. They wait for someone to show them the way, tell them it's okay, give them a little gold star for trying. The wealthy don't ask, they act. They build, they execute, and they're not smarter than you, they're just playing with better instructions. So the real shortcut to wealth? Learn the rules of the rich and stop playing by the ones designed to keep you broke.